Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for the new screensavers is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.
This episode of the New Screensavers is brought to you by Wealthfront. Wealthfront is a low-cost, automated investment service and the most sophisticated way to invest your money. Whether you've got millions or you're just starting out, visit www.wealthfront.com/NSS and sign up to get your free personalized investment portfolio. That's www.wealthfront.com/NSS.
Turn your Keurig coffee maker into a robotic hand. What you need to start your own podcast, and a 10-ton, 350-horsepower combat robot. Live from the Twit East Side Studios in beautiful Petaluma, it's the New Screensavers. Hooray!
Screensavers, this is episode 72, recorded September 24th, 2016. I am Father Robert Ballecer.
And I'm still Patty Norton. How you doing, everybody?
Yeah, you know, this is our chance to play around. Leo is currently over in Europe looking for a new ZPM to power the studio. So as soon as he gets back, he'll take over. But until then, this is our show.
What's a ZPM?
A 0-point module. It's what powers the Stargate. It allows for intergalactic travel and the creation of shields that protect cities.
That's thin line barrier between.
We've gone geek.
Science fiction, science fact. Speaking of science fiction and science fact, we have something so ridiculously and impossibly cool. Do you like giant fighting robots?
Who doesn't?
Titanfall style?
Oh, yeah.
Do you like the idea of maybe seeing some of them battle out 15-foot tall battle bots battling it out?
No, I would prefer to sit on my couch and drink tea.
Well, the MegaBots crew are here. While you're sipping tea and I'm contemplating the total destruction of humanity by giant robots, we got somebody here who's actually building giant robots. We're going to be talking to the MegaBots crew in just a couple minutes.
Indeed. And you know what? When we think of giant robots, we think of the apocalypse, and we've got a maker who's going to come on the show and show us what he's doing to make sure that we understand how to continue society once society has broken down. We've got Evan who's going to be telling us how to turn a Keurig into a robotic hand.
Yeah.
Go figure. Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of down with that.
Well, it's going to be fascinating, actually. Frederick Van Johnson is going to be here. He talks about his camera straps and how he keeps all of his cameras attached. I'm going to be talking to you about how to go from a headphone upgrade from $16 to pretty much the cost of a used car, a nice used car.
And speaking of upgrades, if you're thinking about upgrading your Apple Watch, well, we've got Megan Morrone with a special Apple Watch. It's the porcelain edition. That's right, it's the $1,200 watch that's made out of the same material that fine china might be created from, or dental appliances, or toilets.
With the exact same innards and function. You know what? We'll let Megan tell you about it. It's good stuff.
Yeah. And don't forget that we're going to be answering your questions with some call for help. If you want to know how to podcast, or if you want to know how to make a bootable USB drive that, meets your special specs, you're going to want to stay tapped. I tell you, it's an action-packed show.
With secure USB. Nothing says action-packed like secure USB drives.
Yeah, but of course, we got to get started with our hot topic.
Autonomous vehicles, thumbs up, thumbs down.
You know, it's kind of like this right now. I love the promise. I love the idea. I think we're naturally headed there. I think anyone at this point...
we have no choice.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
If you're trying to say, I will never have an autonomous vehicle, you're dating yourself. At some point, you must recognize you're already driving a partially autonomous vehicle, right? I mean, all the car assist...
I drive a diesel pickup truck.
Maybe not you. Yes?
There's kind of a computer in it. I can run it off of... I can start it and run it off of a single wire.
Well, how about this? If you've bought a car in the last 10 years,
right,
you've got some autonomous functions in there. I mean, the computers are becoming so controlled, everything from the transmission to the ECM to exhaust to the internal entertainment system is part of that automation system. It's just one step further, isn't it?
But we're talking about stuff where it actually is like car take my child to school, car deliver this. We're talking about the idea of replacing, commercial truck drivers, taxi drivers, Uber drivers, anything with a wheel. The idea that you can actually replace those 5 million jobs and all the day-to-day driving that people do with a vehicle that can be completely responsible on the highway.
Yeah, and that's where there's a big hang-up, because some people, even though they like the idea of assisted driving, the ability to be a bit safer, they get very nervous when you turn things over completely, even if, and I'm one of these people.
Computers never make mistakes.
Exactly. Well, I mean, computers make less mistakes than we do as humans.
Right.
But still, there is that, yeah, it may make less mistakes than I do, but do I really want to let my car make the decision of whether or not I'm going to die?
Well, it's an interesting question, right? Part of the reason we're bringing this up is the feds are starting to lay down like, hey, here's what we're going to do, because we got 50 states and people drive in them, and we got a whole bunch of different sets of driving rules. So let's start laying down, some ideas for a national approach to autonomous vehicles on the highway. Because, right, we've had testing in California by Google for a couple of years. We've got Uber testing vehicles in Pittsburgh right now, and we have a lot of questions. For example, right, if you are programming a computer and a computer comes to a sidewalk and let's say, something happens. The person in this lane veers into your lane. So you, the computer, if you are the computer and you're an autonomous vehicle, have a decision to make. Do I hit the car head on, which is not going to be good for the people in the vehicle? Do I hit that tree head on, which is probably just as bad for the people? Or do I run over that small group of children that's playing in the yard over there?
Because they're in the wrong. They're in the wrong, exactly.
Or yeah, maybe they're, if somebody is jaywalking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Do I swerve? Can I stop in time? If I can't stop in time, do I swerve to protect the pedestrian? And it sounds ridiculous, but at some point, there will be insurance investigators and lawyers arguing about who is responsible for the decision your autonomous vehicle took when it decided to run over the small child running out to grab the ball instead of running into the car that swerved off the overlane. It sounds ridiculous.
It's actually really important. And that's why the federal government has released the Federal Automated Vehicles Policy. It's 15 guidelines. Now, this is not just about those legal issues, although those are important. This is about encouraging the growth of autonomous vehicles, because what they've realized is we've gotten to that point, and this happens in every industry, where you've got Tesla, you've got Toyota, you've got Ford, all the major manufacturers, Google,
Probably
Volvo,
Apple. Ford has announced 2021.
And nobody wants to spend millions, if not billions of dollars on developing a technology that may or may not be allowed by the United States government.
I hate that.
So they're saying, look, here's these 15 things. They're kind of nebulous right now, but if you try to follow the spirit of those 15 things, most likely your investment will be safe. And what you talked about, that's actually one of the highlights. It's one of the 15, the ethical considerations. Does my car kill me, or does my car kill the 15 people who were illegally crossing the street?
I know people who, if there was a checkbox in the setup for the software, right after they signed off, yes, protect me at all costs, screw everybody else, they would check that without thinking twice.
Of course. But that's why the guideline is basically saying, not that you have to make your product one way or another, but that you have to consider that. That has to be something that is presented. And in fact, another one of the items is when you're selling these cars, it's not like selling a traditional car. The salesperson has to be trained on informing the consumer about what issues surround buying this vehicle.
This vehicle may not actually stop at stop signs, because it turns out they forgot to tell the vehicle that stop signs aren't always red octane. It sounds stupid. Will there be firmware updates? How many years are there supposed to be firmware updates, right? I mean,
and my personal favorite are there's some issues at the very top. In fact, the very first one is about data sharing. The first two is, okay, do you collect data? Because you must collect data so that we can take that data and find out whether or not these cars are performing properly. And do you tell people that you are collecting the data? So that's the whole security thing. And then you go down below that, you see safety systems, you see digital security, you see human-machine interface. In other words, can the car safely turn control back over to you and take it back when it needs it? And can the car recognize when you're in no shape to take control of the car? So for example, if you've fallen asleep, the car's not going to just say, oh, I don't know what to do. Here you go.
I'm still at the idea. We can eliminate speeding forever.
Yes, we could. Well, I mean,
yeah. This is an interesting thought.
Yeah, that actually is a very interesting thought. There are so many issues that surround this. I know people get tired of hearing this, but this is important. This is really, really important. There's a reason why all these companies are getting into this field, because not just because it's got a huge possibility for profit.
Billions and billions.
Yeah, this is where we're headed. I'm sorry, folks. At some point, you will turn over control of your car. Yeah, are we done with that? Are we scared enough?
I don't know if I'm scared. I'm just kind of curious. Because, well, think about, the introduction to every technology. There are always hiccups. There are always bumps. Even if we know to prevent them, things happen.
Yeah, and again, the more data we collect, and this is why they're specifically saying that these manufacturers need to collect data, the safer they can make the cars. The first couple of years, there will be weird things because remember, traffic laws can change from ordinance to ordinance, city to city, locality to locality.
I'm just still trying to wrap myself back at the idea of the federal government knowing exactly where my car is at any given moment in any given day.
Yeah,
it's exciting. It's a brave new world.
Do we fight it? Do we fight it, Patrick? Should I buy myself a 5-ton truck that has absolutely no automation and just say, no, I'm keeping this?
Yeah, I'm not even going there.
All right.
Facebook, overstate gate. Apparently, Facebook is the only organization on the internet that can be guilty of stuffing view counts on videos.
I think that's the end of the story. It was just Facebook. That's the only company that ever does that.
Well, except for every website you've ever been into that auto-rolls a video, and they continues to auto-roll the videos in the background, even if that's the third tab on the left that you haven't actually looked at yet because you were right-clicking and opening during a research project.
Wow.
This has been fun.
This has been fun also because the people who have been watching Facebook video grow over since its beta have been saying, wow, that was really fast growth. I mean, you're claiming numbers that are just outstanding. And about 6 months ago, there was some whispers in the community of, this can't be. I mean, if you actually look at Facebook's numbers, people would be spending way more time on their computer than they actually do.
Yeah.
Well, it came out that...
Well, it's like looking at the billable hours for a young lawyer.
Precisely.
There's 40 hours in a week that bills 60 hours. Everybody's happy, and it's a curiosity because the Facebook basically says we had a problem. There was a problem with an algorithm.
Yes, there was.
And we may have overstated duration of view lengths by approximately 80%.
There was a problem in the algorithm, and of course the problem specifically was they were counting everything that was more than 3 seconds. So if you were on the video for 3 seconds, that's a complete view, which is ridiculous because no one else does that. And also,
to a certain degree, most organizations count hitting the play button as a view.
Which you can, except on Facebook, they had those auto-playing videos. So when you brought up your feed and there's 12 videos that you scroll past, and they were just on screen for 3 seconds, they counted that. They said, oh no, you were an invested viewer, and we should count you against our advertising numbers.
Which makes advertisers really angry, and then they start defunding things, and then it makes it harder to actually sell advertising against programming.
Now this is not just bad news for Facebook. I mean, if you're a Facebook hater, sure, take your moment, be gleeful, just laugh and do the maniacal thing and pet the white cat. But the more important issue here is the fact that this is actually commonplace. We see auto run and pre-roll all the time. In fact, it's one of the things that I rally against on my Twitter account. That's the fastest way to make sure I never visit your site again, to put like 5 auto-playing videos so I can watch 1 article.
Well, it's also been interesting how certain ad blocking tools are now taking ads.
AdBlock Plus decided, you know what? We want to make sure that your computer is not compromised by malware sharing advertising. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the money instead, and then we're going to give you safe ads. And that's specifically what they've done.
As somebody who believes in supporting advertising, because advertising pays for the things I look at on the web, or obviously pays for the video you're watching now, it's been problematic. But I finally started installing ad blockers on certain machines, and I was like, wow, I just got 30% of my CPU back.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it is a complicated issue. Advertising, pre-rolling, and auto-playing. I mean, yes, you can look at those and just say, I don't want them at all, but at the same time, if you do that, you kind of kill the internet that we love. And I know
the ability to pay for it.
The ability to pay for it. I mean, if you're going to say, I will never want to see advertising at all, and I never want to contribute to a show that I love, then
don't worry, it'll all go away.
It will go away. Yeah.
You can go read books at the library, which will be better for your brain.
But I would say, for the story, the follow-up would be expect to see a couple of different companies adjusting the way that they have counts. Like YouTube is definitely going to be adjusting the way that they count views. They've already done a little bit with some of the videos from recording industries, because those have been obviously overblown. But we're going to start to see on the smaller videos.
Oh my goodness. So October 4th next week, we know there's going to be an announcement, probably going to be phones from our friends at Google. I bring that up because it looks like Google may or may not, the rumor mongering is that they're going to do an Echo style device for home automation. And then it looks like Apple may also be revealing a voice-activated, voice-controlled home automation control advice Echo style.
And of course, this is because the Echo was Amazon's absolute stealth breakout hit. It was a product that we kind of gave a little fanfare, like, oh, it's kind of cool. You know, I can say, Alexa, order me blah, blah, blah.
Well, that came later. Not when it launched.
Right, not when it launched. But because it became so popular and because so many people started developing all these skills that would tie it onto all these different types of technology, you've now got Google and Apple saying, oh, this is not actually bad. We can have a device that's always listening, always responding, always ready to do what the user wants. Why wouldn't we create something for that?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, wait with bated breath, but something will be listening to you in your home. Possibly your autonomous automobile.
Oh my God. So you park your car in the living room so it can turn on your TV?
Yeah, everybody needs a hobby, man.
Yeah, why
It's a
not?
big living room.
It is. Well, folks, you know, I love talking about tech. I love talking about the news. I love talking about things like the advancement of self-driving vehicles. But you know what I really want, Patrick?
Giant robots at your beck and call.
Yes, because I just realized that T is just not going to do it for me. I need to see some metal bashing metal. So let's take a wander over to the other side of the studio, where we are going to be speaking with the man himself, Mr. Matt Oehrlein. He is the co-founder of MegaBots.
MegaBots.
And yeah, they've built a 10-ton robot because why wouldn't they? Matt, thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks, guys.
Now, I think you took the internet by storm when you put out those videos of you building the first one. It just made people think, why haven't we done this before? But what was your inspiration for making this massive construct?
Yeah, I think for all of us at MegaBots, it was like the video games, the movies, the comic books, all that kind of stuff that we read and consumed as kids, like science fiction, pop culture of like giant fighting robots, from like Power Rangers to Transformers to the Power Loader and Aliens to playing BattleTech and MechWarrior.
I've always wanted the Power Loader from Aliens.
Exactly.
Always.
Right?
So it's the dream of bringing that to life for the first time, and we kind of realized like, hey, we went to engineering school and we learned how to build like big, crazy, like machines. Why isn't someone doing this? And so we decided to do it.
Well, what goes into this? Because I know there's a lot of steel. It's 10 tons.
Right.
Yep. I know you have a 350 horsepower power plant to be able to make this thing, but it's not as simple as putting a robotic arm on top of a tractor.
Right.
That would have been simpler, actually.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, look at this. I mean, this is some serious forethought. Now, how much of that is decorative and how much of that
Sure.
is
Now,
structural?
so yeah, what we're watching here, this is footage of the Mark II. This is the first robot we built. This is mostly all custom laser cut and welded steel. The track base is actually off a Caterpillar 289C skid steer, and we salvaged that off of an old skid steer that burned to the ground, I think somewhere in Pennsylvania, and they shipped it to us. The rest is all kind of like surplus hydraulics components that might normally go on a piece of construction equipment, but we've repurposed it for giant robot purposes. The armor panels on here, the dirty secret, the armor panels on the Mark II are painted foam, and that is why we can't take that into battle.
Well,
so
then
the
you
next
could.
robot is going to be like, it's all steel.
So you've actually challenged Tsutobashi Heavy Industry in Japan to a battle.
Yep.
To the death of the pilots?
To the death of the robots. Hopefully no pilots die. But like more, seriously, we're trying to make this as destructive but also safe for this to survive as a real sports league.
This is exciting. I mean, have you guys kind of figured out, how is it going to be a giant ring? Is it going to be open territory? Are you going to find a giant field somewhere?
For the duel?
Yeah.
So we haven't, so the duel we have not publicly announced where it's going to be yet, so we can't talk about that. We had lots of very crazy ideas, like an aircraft carrier in the middle of the Pacific Ocean or something like that. But yeah, we can't disclose where it's going to be yet. We're actually under NDA with the Japanese team. So once all of the venue details are worked out and we are able to release the location under all of the media rights that are associated with that.
Matt, I've had a question that's been bouncing around my head since you made that challenge, which is, the two teams made two very different bots.
Yeah.
Theirs is more, it's a ninja. It's super high tech.
Super
it's
sleek.
It's smooth. It's shiny. You don't want to touch it because you want it to have that new in box look.
It's so beautiful.
And yours was more, hey, you know what? Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. We just made it so it's going to take punishment. And I was always wondering, well, how do you make those two compete? Because yours is designed to wade into the middle of the battle and just start firing. And there's a sort of counting coup. I'll tap you and then I'll run away.
Yeah.
How do you compete with those two styles?
Yeah. So I mean, like we are really just fully embracing the American down and dirty, like junkyard, throw it together, like let's get her done mentality. Make it big, put big guns on it, and just go in there guns blazing. So yeah, it's gonna be pretty exciting. The battle will be some mix of ranged and hand-to-hand combat. So, if you look at the two current robots that we did the challenge with, I'm not sure if there is a good way for those to do battle in their current configurations, and that's kind of why we're like, okay, we built our robots, we set the scene, we told the world a story. Now now that everyone's listening, let's make the robots that can actually do this right and make it super entertaining. And
unlike the Mark II, you'll actually have armor.
Correct.
Instead.
Yeah.
The foam's not going to stop the sword. I'm thinking. But what strikes me is this is like every anime ever, every giant robot anime, and specifically right now I'm thinking of something like Gundam Wing, where you've got robots that have distance artillery type weapons, and you have robots that have big laser swords, and that's basically what this competition is. What will you do when you're faced with a robot that has completely different capabilities than your own, and you now have to figure out what's the proper strategy for you? I love that aspect.
I mean, that's why it's going to be so entertaining. It's like that is why you watch, to find that out. But we are, we're preparing, our new robot to be able to take on whatever we think the Japanese guys are going to throw at us. It's going to be a surprise. I mean, the cockpit is built to NASCAR and Monster Jam roll cage standards. This thing's going to be able to take a fall. We're going to have armor panel, thick steel armor paneling all around the cockpit to protect the pilot. The arms were kind of intentionally trying to save a little weight there, and it's it's not the end of the world if an arm gets ripped off and falls to the ground.
Just glue it back on.
So focus on protecting the pilot. All the rest of the robot, it can be destructible.
Actually, let's talk about that. The pilot. So you both teams have decided to put the pilot in the bot.
Yeah.
Whereas what we see today with everything from drones to cars, you take the pilot out of the bot. You put him
pilot's
someplace
usually
safe.
behind 6 to 8 inches of plexiglass in a steel armored arena.
With a virtual reality goggle so he can see everything around him. Why put the pilot in harm's way? Is it just more exciting?
Right. So our hypothesis was, when we started this company, was that when people go to watch sports, even if it's a technology-enabled sport like NASCAR, Formula One, or motocross, you go to watch people. And it wouldn't be as entertaining if you had Formula One cars driving autonomously around a ring. Because people go and they go, wow, what's it like to be that driver? I could be a driver someday. I want to know what it feels like to be the driver. Look how much skill that person has to use. And they imagine themselves being in that place. And it's dangerous. And that's really exciting and entertaining to people. And so that's our hypothesis, is that people want to see people compete. And the fact that there's a robot around them just sort of sweetens the deal.
It's that whole idea of there literally is skin in the game. It's not just you.
His skin.
It's
There's
your skin
in the game.
Actually, let's ask about that. You're actually piloting this thing. You're not getting another pilot, an expert who knows how to work machinery and hydraulics. It's the guys who made it are the guys who are going to be driving it.
Yeah. So it's going to be myself and my co-founder Guy in the new robot. We've actually separated out the two roles. So we played a lot of Mech Warrior when we were kids. And so what happens in these video games is the torso of the robot can twist independently of where robot's walking.
Right.
And so you'll twist to the side and you'll be, guns blazing, and the robot will keep walking forward, and you'll run into trees and houses and other robots and crush cars and all this kind of stuff. But you're not really paying attention, and the robot just... So that's great in a video game, but
it doesn't work
in real life, like that gets really expensive really fast.
Yeah.
And really, the live studio audience gets upset. The bleeding,
Yeah.
When you start
screaming.
squishing them.
Yes.
Right.
That's a thing.
So yeah, we've purposely separated out those roles. One person just worries about getting the robot in the right spot, not running into things they shouldn't be running into, and then the other person focuses on
The killing and the
dealing the
maiming and the
damage
destruction.
and unloading the weapons.
I'm glad that you mentioned Mech Warrior, because the first thing I thought of when I saw the original video was that looks like either a Warhammer or Marauder from the game I used to play.
Yeah.
It's got that same kind of style where the hands are just guns.
And so, funny story about that. Actually, the guy, his name is Alex Iglesias, who's done like concept art for the Mech Warrior series for like the last 12 years, is the guy who did our first concept drawing of our first mech. And so that's why you see
that would
the
do it.
similarity. So yeah, there's this funny weekend
found
where
it, yeah.
That's Alex. Thanks, Alex.
Wait, you've got a chainsaw on that one.
Was the balance in the right place? Because it's always funny, because sometimes people go to build something that's based on a creative tradition, and then they find out, like, it's too top heavy, it falls over, it leans.
And so what we did is we gave this guy a call, and we said, hey, will you? We were in Boston at the time, and we said, will you fly to Boston, sit in our kitchen, and draw a robot that we can build? And we will, like, you draw stuff for video games all the time, but how would you like to draw a robot that will actually be built, like a real live mech? And he was like, okay, I'm in. Like, yeah, it's pretty compelling. And he sat at our kitchen table, and we stood over his shoulders, and we just kind of like, we're like, okay, draw a robot. And he starts drawing a robot, and it's like, big and just like jaunty and just like, And we're like, okay, so the arms actually need to be bigger because the hydraulic actuators we're going to use are probably going to be these. So can you like add a little space here? There needs to be like a degree of freedom here, and for balance reasons, these like, and then we massaged everything, and then he would change the drawing a little bit, and then he would go back to us.
That's awesome.
And we did this for
that
about
process.
2 or 3 days, and that's how the first concept art ended up. And so that's kind of our design process, is that we go back and forth with a concept artist, and engineers work with that artist to just iterate very quickly, because it's so fast to change that
That's
in
the way to
Photoshop.
do it, though. I mean, that's how you do it. You have the engineering inform the design, and the design informs the engineering.
Right.
It should go back and forth.
Then once you have that design, then you bring it into CAD, and you start laying all the steel and the actuators around it. And then, there's some things that you oh shoot, I didn't think about hose routing, hydraulic hose routing. So yeah, I gotta like open up little, holes here to get the like service
always
loops
awkward
going.
when you pinch a hydraulic hose,
Yeah, that's
and the
'cause
thing
they
stops.
don't bend at 90-degree angles real well. They don't like
yeah,
that.
you gotta give them a little space to bend and twist and stuff. So yeah, that's how
Now, okay, so looking forward to a season, looking forward to the competition. I don't know if you want to say this, because of course this is going to be a show that will be watched by everybody, but what is the thing that you fear the most? What's the thing that absolutely you need to fix, or you're just hoping that they don't pick up that this is a weakness?
I'm hoping that what I'm hoping is that the battle is as entertaining as giant fighting robots deserve, and so we're armoring all the critical components, the computers, all that kind of stuff that, like, if it gets damaged, the whole robot stops working. My fear is that we miss one of those, and just like some kind of metal skewer comes through and like slices a wire that doesn't have any redundancy elsewhere in the system and just kills the whole robot. Like, for me, that would be like, you just you found the weak point and it's over so fast. I think, at this point, both teams, we are so dedicated to the dream of epic giant fighting robots that, if the battle is super destructive and entertaining and just awesome, that is happiness.
And here's
for
your opponents right
yeah, there
now.
you go.
Yeah. Oh, you've got to take these guys down.
I know, right?
That thing is just too
Come
sleek.
on.
You got to scratch. You know what? If you scratch that thing up, it's over. That just falls over.
I know. Those just be tears.
Oh, well, that
all
may
around.
not be what shows up. What's the date for when the season starts?
That's the other thing that we can't publicly announce. What I can say is that we are producing a web series, a digital video series. The first there's a promo trailer out, which actually it's playing right now, which is super hilarious and showcases some of the crazy stunts that we pull off in this series. The first episode comes out September 28th. So you can check back on our website, check our YouTube channel, and it's kind of like the start of this series. That series will then lead up to the duel.
What's the website?
MegaBots.com.
What's the Facebook site?
I think if you search MegaBots on Facebook, you'll find us. I think our handle on Facebook is actually MegaBots Inc.
Got it.
All one word.
Good luck.
Cool. Thank you.
Don't get skewered.
Yep.
We've been speaking with Matt Oehrlein, the co-founder of MegaBots. He's going to be bringing us 10 tons of destructive force. And then hopefully after the robot's done, it will retire into some pasture and just be a nice, gentle, fluffy bunny, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on. Cool. Now, in just a bit, we're going to be bringing you Megan Morrone. She's got some thoughts on the super high-end Apple Watch. If you've been thinking about updating to the Apple Watch 2, then you're going to want to stay tabbed. But before we do that, let's go ahead and take a moment to thank the sponsor of this episode of the new Screensavers. Now, let me ask you something. Have you thought about your long-term investments? Because you really should. I mean, everybody should. It's never too early to start setting aside some money to make sure that you're taken care of, that you're comfortable when it comes time for you to enjoy your pasture next to the giant mega robot that has just gone through hell because it fought a Japanese robot. I think that's called a callback. Well, folks, you don't need all of that. All you need is Wealthfront. It's the best way for you to consider how you're going to handle your money. Now, traditional advisors will charge you huge fees, between 1% and 3% of what they manage. But with Wealthfront, you pay 1/4% a year. Yeah, let me repeat that. 1/4% a year. That's 25 basis points. Zero commissions, no hidden fees. That's less than $5 a month to invest a $30,000 account. Now, there are no additional charges for any of Wealthfront's services. They don't believe in nickel and diming you for every time you want a statement, every time you want to talk to a rep, every time you need help. You can get started investing today with as little as $500. Unlike other financial advisors, Wealthfront won't bog you down with dozens of questions. They simplified the risk identification process, which allows you to begin investing sooner. It only takes a few minutes to sign up, and it goes right to work monitoring your portfolios around the clock and takes action as soon as any opportunity arises. Their portfolios are based on modern portfolio theory. They're designed to adjust according to your personal risk tolerance while staying diversified and tax efficient. It's a cold calculating algorithm. In other words, you're not subject to the whims of an advisor who may want to put your money in a place that's not good for you, maybe good for another customer. Wealthfront will always put you first. They're also transparent and accessible. You can view and track all of your accounts in one place. They'll track both your Wealthfront and non-Wealthfront bank and brokerage accounts, and they provide you a summary of all your assets so that at any given time you can have that vaunted single pane of glass that shows you how you're doing financially. You can see every trade that Wealthfront makes on your behalf in your dashboard, on your desktop, or with their mobile app. And they recently introduced their $529 college saving plan, allowing you to invest after-tax dollars, much like a Roth IRA, and save for your child or grandchild's higher education expenses. Wealthfront manages almost $3 billion in client assets, and it's growing rapidly every day. What are you waiting for? Invest in your future with Wealthfront. Visit www.wealthfront.com/NSS to sign up and get your free personalized investment portfolio. You'll see the customized allocation they recommend for your profile. And just for Twit listeners, if you sign up to invest, Wealthfront will manage your first $15,000 entirely free of charge for life. Join the many Twit fans who have seen huge success with Wealthfront and claim your offer today at www.wealthfront.com/NSS. That's www.wealthfront.com/NSS. And we thank Wealthfront for their support of the new Screensavers. Well, without further ado, if you're thinking about getting yourself the ceramic Apple Watch 2, you may want to first listen to Megan Morrone.
I am Megan Morrone, and I host Tech News Today, Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific, and iOS Today every Monday at 1:30 Pacific. Today, I'm going to give you a quick look at Leo's brand new Apple Watch Series 2, 42 millimeters. Now, Apple has done away with the $10,000 gold Apple Watch edition, so Leo was left with ordering the next best thing, the ceramic Apple Watch edition, which starts at $1,249. Let's open the box. First, you'll notice that it comes in a square box instead of the rectangular box that comes with your standard Apple Watch Series 2. It also comes with 2 Apple Watch chargers, 1 soft pad so that your watch has a little bed to sleep on at night, and another standard charger that you can keep at your desk or put in a third-party charger that you bought for your last Apple Watch. It comes with a Cloud Sport band, which is great looking, but frankly, I would have expected something better for a watch that costs over $1,000. Maybe they assume that you've already invested in some pricey bands and you can easily switch it out with those. The watch itself has built-in GPS, a dual-core processor, a heart rate sensor, and it's waterproof up to 50 meters. Now, I do not want to go swimming in Leo's brand new watch while he's on vacation because I love my job. But Patrick Delahanty also bought a Series 2 sports watch. Hi, Patrick. Hi. And he is willing to put his arm in a bowl of water and see if we can get it to do its fancy water ejecting thing. Do like you're really swimming around in there. Do the crawl. Pretend like you're Olympic swim.
Not that
big. All right, let's see. Now he's going to do the water ejecting thing. All right. Let's listen to that. That's it. Get out of here. The battery on this thing is supposed to be over 30% better than the first watch, but it won't necessarily last longer. You'll need that extra battery power due to the always-on GPS. I'm sure Leo will give you his full review when he gets back from vacation, but until then, do not tell him I touched it. Don't even tell him I looked at it. It's our little secret, okay? Okay.
Thanks to Megan Morrone. You can find her every day, weekday, for Tech News Today, 4 o'clock p.m. Pacific time, as well as with Leo for iOS Today. That's, I'm not a big wearables fan. As you notice, I don't have anything on my wrist. I actually got a freebie from Leo. Well, still a freebie from Leo, but it's nice, and I love the tech. I just don't feel like I want to go back to the days where I had to wear something.
Well, it all seems to be one of the issues with the entire, sort of watch, smartwatch industry is a lot of the major players like, yeah, we're not doing anything new this year. The Apple Watch sales were down 68% over last year, at least until the smartwatch Series 2 came out. It seems to be something where it's struggling mightily to be better than a Fitbit.
And also, unlike a phone or a laptop, if you've got a nice watch, you don't replace it every year. It's, even if the next version is 80% faster, so it tells time 80% faster.
That's not the plan.
Oh, I know.
Buy a new $400 watch every year. I don't know.
No.
The new smartwatch OS aims to fix so many of the issues with the smartwatch OS that the Apple Watch launched
I
with.
think the only way to make this a true product category is to have every watch biodegrade every 18 months or so.
I'm just going to think about that for a minute. Bart, are you with us? Byron Bay, New South Wales, Australia. Yeah. We got a call for help.
It's time for a call for help. Bart, so evidently you've got some issues with USB devices.
I've been doing some research into making my own bootable USB devices, and I'm looking for something that will allow me to make a bootable USB, but then switch it so that you cannot write to it again after that. A way of protecting it, if you like, if you're trying to say format a infected PC or something like that.
So you're essentially trying to do with a USB flash drive the same thing that we used to have with the wonderful Linux distros that you could put on CD, where once it's burned, there is absolutely no risk of it getting infected. It can't get destroyed. It can't get modified. It can't get owned.
Write protection.
There you go.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Well, Patrick, I know that you've experimented a lot with this. You've got several different ways. What's the best way you found to do this?
Well, the best way to do it is actually have something that can't be ever written on, but nobody wants to do a CD or a DVD anymore. Most people think Kangaroo, PQI. There's a couple other manufacturers that make what are essentially USB thumb drives with a switch on the side. And when the switch is enabled, you should not be able to write to it.
Right.
And it's just that simple.
It really is that simple. There's another solution that I found a while back, which is, and it's very rare. You actually have to look up the spec that's typically not listed. There are some devices that will allow you to boot off of an SD card. So it looks like a USB flash drive, but then you put an SD card into it. And SD cards do actually have that switch to say, do not allow writing to the memory on this card. And it's designed to protect whatever media you might have on there. The issue with that, though, is often those don't boot properly on every machine.
Right.
So it kind of really depends on what you want to do with it, Bart. Where are you headed?
Windows 10 has been an issue for me with my particular laptop, so I'm now considering other operating systems. I want to experiment with them and be able to blow away the install for something else completely different, maybe a Unix or a Linux distribution. I'm not sure yet. It'd be nice if I could load up all those ISOs onto the USB straight away as well, and be able to choose from those as and when I want to.
Okay, so your idea is you want to use a USB device as your primary boot drive. You just swap out, today I'm running Windows, today I'm running Ubuntu, today I'm running Mint. That's essentially what you want?
Sort of, yes. Or to be able to install, basically to trick the computer into thinking I've got the CD in the drive and install to the hard disk from that boot disk. From the bootable USB.
Okay, well, I mean, that part is actually pretty simple. You can, there are a couple of programs, I'm not sure if Magic ISO does it, but they will allow you to take an ISO and drop it directly onto a USB connected media, and it will when you plug it into, I know it supports OS X, Windows, and most versions of Linux, it will see it as a CD. When you plug it in, it mounts it as a CD drive. But it sounds to me that you don't actually want to boot off the USB. You just want to be able to quickly install off of USB, preferably USB 3?
Yeah, preferably. Just so you've got a quicker write time to the hard drive, etc.
And do you want to have a different device for every OS you want to install, or do you just want one big drive that contains everything?
Yeah, one USB stick, if you like, to rule them all, to have every...
And in the darkness bind them. Probably
Yes,
something like... I was going to say something like easy to boot might be a way to go with that.
Yeah.
Because I will say now, you know, this should work, but your biggest challenge when you're dealing with running Linux on a laptop is, unless you're running a laptop that came from the factory with Linux with the factory distro, you're almost always going to run into driver issues and power management issues with a lot of laptops. It has gotten a lot better, but I am the only person that uses Windows in an office full of Linux users, and hearing some of the things some of the expletives that go radiating around the warehouse when somebody can't get some simple thing to work on their laptop, I thought those days were over, but they still pop up.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. I remember I used to do this all the time with Live CD, but you're absolutely right. Today's USB devices can perform much faster than an optical drive ever could. So I kind of get what you want to do. I would go with Patrick's suggestion. Go with a multi-boot drive, and then just partition the drive and put the different ISOs there so that you can choose which one you want to install at any given time. Just be aware that, as Patrick mentioned, it's not as easy as just saying, okay, I'm going to flip between this installation and this installation and this installation, because most distros won't work with every type of hardware package that you have. So it's not as simple as saying, okay, now you're going to run Ubuntu. I'm going to install Ubuntu, and then I'm going to spend the next 30 minutes fixing the little driver conflicts that I'm having.
You might do that for the first 2 or 3 times in 1 week, but by the 4th or 5th distro, you're probably going to be like, you know, I like that last one just fine.
Do
you mind if I ask why you think you're going to be flipping distros so much?
Just as an experimental phase. Once again, as I said, I've not really had much luck with Windows 10 on my laptop. Unfortunately, Dell didn't release the drivers for them, and I've never really used anything else other than Ubuntu. So I'm curious to know what else is out there, and how that's going to run on my computer, whether I'm going to like using it, and to have it all loaded up and ready to go, so I don't have to worry about downloading the next one before wiping the installation, or the installation might not even go right in the first place. So it's nice to have something to fall back to.
And those are all very good concerns to have, because that will all happen, I guarantee you. However, Nuke Jello in our chat room, he just brought up something I'm surprised we didn't think of earlier, which is VM. Just VM it. I mean, because you can actually download. People have been really nice in the Linux community to make proper VMs of some of your favorite distributions. And if you download those VMs, you can actually just kick them off inside of Windows or OS 10 or even Linux, that's as long as it supports some sort of hypervisor, and you can try that distro without having to change anything. And that is so much better. The compatibility is so much easier because you are going through that virtual hardware abstraction layer. Does that sound like something you might want to do? I mean, yeah, you'd still be running it on top of Windows, but at least you can see which distro you want to use before you go full blown.
That is also a very good idea. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah. But part of me wants to say is if you're not completely committed to Linux yet, you may just want to dual boot with Ubuntu and see if you can get to the point where you use Ubuntu more than Windows 10, and at that point fully commit and then start experimenting with Mint and Element OS and all of the other options that are out there.
Okay.
Because we could list off distros for days, and in many cases the differences between them are kind of, somebody got angry about this, I want to use this desktop manager, and boom, a whole other fork occurs, and you're off with another distro option.
That's typically how the Linux world works. It's great until that one guy stops getting along with everyone. He says, you know what, I'm taking the code, I'm going to fork it, people are going to like my distro better. What I do like about some of the distributions, like Ubuntu, is they start to offer you long-term support. And that's, for me, that's kind of key, because I don't want to have to completely change my distro because people got bored and they stopped supporting it.
Can't argue that.
Yeah, well, Bart, best of luck. You know what? Make sure you contact us when you land on a distribution that you like. And I'm gonna put 4-to-1 odds that you're gonna land on Ubuntu.
Okay.
Okay. And
we'll see what happens.
If you don't, then I will force my co-host on Know-How to use whatever distribution you eventually do choose.
Okay. Well, challenge accepted.
Okay. Bart, thank you very much for joining us and for coming for some call for help. Folks, if you want to be on the new Screensavers, if you've got a question, well, guess what? Next week, we've got Scott Wilkinson and Jason Howell who will be on the show. So if you've got any questions about Android, if you've got any questions about home theater, yeah.
Scott's amazing.
He is amazing, and you can talk straight to him. Just make sure that you follow these instructions.
Need tech help? The new Screensavers are here with answers. Email your tech questions to newscreensavers@twit.tv.
You do use Linux on some of your boxes, right?
I do.
Yeah. Well, what's your preferred OS? Is OS 10?
At this point, because so much of the audience I deal with deals with Windows, my primary is Windows 10. My secondary is, my wife still uses OS 10, and then I've got Element and Puppy Linux and Ubuntu.
Puppy.
I like Puppy Linux.
Oh, that thing is so cute. It's so small.
Yes.
So small.
I have it on a very old machine that runs very slowly.
I do a couple of Linux distros. I've actually just finished rolling back all my Windows 10 machines. I was putting up with some of the little quirks until it decided that for no reason and without warning, it was going to do its major upgrade in the middle of a show. That was... Don't do that.
You can manage those settings.
No, I had it set. There was a work setting. It's like I'm working from this time, this time. No notification, no pop-up, no ability to cancel. I just look down and suddenly I'm updating. I'm like, wait, what?
Maybe somebody else did that to you. Snuck up stealthily.
Cranky hippo.
Pink.
Yeah. Speaking of stealthily, would you be ready for the end of the world? Would you be able to continue your way of life? Would you be able to say, create a robot hand out of a coffee maker?
Absolutely not.
Folks, these are the questions that keep me up at night, and that's why we've brought on Evan Booth from Greensboro, North Carolina. He is a maker who, well, he makes things out of things that you wouldn't think could become those things. That was a sentence. Those were words that came out of his mouth.
It was almost elegant. I liked it.
Right? Evan, thank you very much for coming on to the new Screensavers.
It's my pleasure.
Now, refresh me here. You specialize in turning items that we know into items that we wouldn't expect. That's your superpower maker skill.
Well, specialize is kind of a funny word, right? But yeah, I love doing that. That's sort of my thing. Yeah. Absolutely.
So I got to say, because there's Keurig coffee makers.
Yeah.
So we have the apocalypse. Keurig coffee makers are littering the landscape. Therefore, they are a perfect thing to turn into a robotic hand, or you have found so many useful things inside a Keurig coffee maker that you were like, hey, I think I could do this and this and this. What was the process that got you from staring at a coffee maker to actually working on a robotic hand?
Well, it was kind of like that, right? So I think, well, first off, the apocalypse thing, I don't think that's coming. I'm not a prepper, I don't have like, 3 years worth of food in my basement or anything like that, But I do think it's a really fun sort of scenario to base problem solving around, right? To start thinking about,
sure,
how to build stuff, and it's kind of fuels me because in that particular scenario, like all you have is really the stuff around you, and you gotta make do, you gotta build things. And so, I started thinking about the Keurig, and I'd taken a few apart before, and there's just like a smattering of interesting components inside. Mm-hmm. And so you've got pneumatics, you've got electronics, you've got a boiler, just some really cool stuff. And I started thinking like these are everywhere, right?
Right.
I think they said last year it was like nearly a third of American homes you'll find a Keurig in there, or some sort of single cup coffee maker. Uh-huh. And so for me, it's just a way to it's a good outlet for my particular brand of making problem solving. But like a side benefit is definitely that I want people to look at this thing that they don't care anything about. They go and it gives them coffee quickly and they go about their day, and just have to stop and think about how much potential is actually in that thing that we just use without thinking twice about it.
It's amazing. I mean, the whole build is amazing. What made you decide to work on a hand? What was the inspiration for that?
The big thing for me is that most of the stuff I made before this are things that no one else has really made or really taken a stab at. The hand is cool for me because people are doing really amazing work with like 3D printed, sure, prosthetics and all this stuff, and so it sort of gave me a really nice baseline for comparison. So like someone who has additive manufacturing capabilities, right? They can get this far, with a hand. Mm-hmm. How far can I get, or how close can I get to that with just a coffee maker, right? And it's something too that I think is it feels a lot like has a lot of accessibility. Mm-hmm. Everybody's got hands, we take them for granted, obviously, and they're really complicated, turns out. But it's something that I feel like people could really connect with.
Absolutely.
I noticed that a couple times there you had the hand made from a Keurig holding a coffee cup that looks like it had coffee made from a Keurig. Is that like coffeeballism? I mean, what are we talking about here?
Yeah. I think this is about the time you'd play that the Inception like blah sound effect, right?
Now, what are the components inside of the Keurig that you were able to use? So some sort of servo or stepper motor. I mean, obviously you've reused the plastic shell and shaped it the way that you want. But what were the primary pieces that you needed to pull out and reuse?
So the main things are the motor that drives the actual like grip is the motor and gear assembly that is used to pump the water out of the reservoir into the boiler, right? So that's kind of the big thing. I'm also using an air pump that I ended up sort of gutting out and building like a really gangster like electronic speed controller. Mm-hmm. And that was simply because that motor and gear assembly for the reservoir, they just moved too quickly. So the hand would end up like closing and opening too fast. It wouldn't be very very usable, and I didn't really have enough components inside from an electronic standpoint to build a proper speed controller or anything like that.
That's a pretty awesome accomplishment to sort of hack together a speed controller on the fly.
It was a tremendous amount of fun, like crazy.
What?
I was just about to say that I love what you're doing here because I'm a maker, you're a maker, mm-hmm. your co-host is a maker, my co-host is a maker. But a lot of the projects that we do, because of the tools we have available to us, especially things like 3D printers and really cheap CAD programs and incredibly cheap components that we could just throw together and turn into whatever we need, there's not a lot of attention anymore being paid to, well, what goes into the equipment that we use? Mm-hmm. So I can take that apart if necessary. I love the fact that you've done this. What other devices have you looked at as potential sources of raw materials and components?
So my last project, I used a lot of stuff that you can buy in airports specifically. But as far as like this sort of thing, as a sort of an ongoing project. Keurig is kind of it, you know, like there's a ton of potential in, I don't know, most everything. I just felt like Keurig was a kind of a, I don't know, a good baseline example.
Oh my goodness. What do you know what you're going to be working on next?
So I'd love to build a hydroelectric generator.
Yes,
cool. That'd be amazing. 'Cause I mean, once you have the ability to generate power, you know, the next step is pretty unlimited. So from there, I would love to do. I've been researching a lot lately, and I feel like there's enough components to build either AM or FM transceiver. So the ability to broadcast and to receive on AM or FM.
No, I got to ask. Broadcast to receive AM or FM from parts in a Keurig or salvage parts from other places?
Oh, just one single Keurig. Like all of these will just be one Keurig. Yeah. See, that's what I want. You know, like
that's epic.
If I knew like for sure that I can do it before I get started, then it's not hard enough, right?
Wait a minute. You're building.
It's gutsy because it's impossible to do a video about making, even when you think you have all of the parts and the tools and supplies you need. That's so gutsy, dude. It's awesome.
Well, who thought you could build a hand, right?
Not me. I was amazed.
You're building a way to replace severed limbs. You're building a way to generate power, and you're building a way to transmit for help. Are you sure you're not an apocalypse prepper?
You know, I guess it depends on the weather, right? I don't know.
Oh my goodness. What's the website, man?
It's jitterymacgyver.com. Jittery MacGyver is just the name of the project. First thing I came up with. So
perfect.
I love it, and very appropriately timed, by the way, I may say.
Oh my goodness, Evan, thank you so much for joining us today. That is an
my pleasure.
Amazing build.
Let me just say real quick, I was like this close to wearing my MegaBots shirt just randomly. It would have been so embarrassing.
That's Inception. Evan Booth from Greensboro, North Carolina, thank you very much for your call.
My pleasure.
Now, that man is rebuilding society after an apocalypse, one Keurig at a time.
That's epic.
I forgot to ask him, though, what would happen if the hand continued the Keurig DRM? Would it only work once you put up a new pod?
I'm not even touching that one.
Yeah. Well, folks, you know, we've had a little bit of fun here. We've talked a little bit about robots. We've talked about robot hands from coffee machines. We've talked about how to make bootable USB drives. Let's get it a little bit more down to earth. We've got another call for help. And we welcome to the show Jack from Flagstaff, Arizona. Jack, you've got a question about podcasting.
Yeah. So basically, I'm trying to start a podcast, but I don't know how to get started. About hardware, software, as well as just like cloud and promotion stuff.
Jack, I'm gonna start, and I'm gonna kick it off to my esteemed friend because he's got way more years in broadcasting than I. I will say, on the hardware side, wait, because one of the temptations is to buy as much hardware as you can, to go out there and spend money before you actually have the idea for your show together. That is the most important part, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, because you know we used to get this like, I want to start a podcast, but I don't have $7,000 for microphones and super incredible pre-audio amplifiers and a digital recording system. And stop, right now. Look at pull Jack back up here.
There we go.
Boom. You got a webcam, you got a headset, you got to start right there. That's all the equipment you need, because everybody thinks it's the equipment, and the reality is like doing a weekly or a daily or a monthly podcast and making it interesting and bringing you into that podcast. That is absolutely the hardest part. Is like releasing it every week is hard. Releasing it every day is even harder. So figuring out like what I want to talk about. I want to talk about tech. Do I want to talk about mobile tech, this tech, that tech, certain tech, unboxing tech? There's so many different routes. Figure out like what you want to do. Figure out a deadline. And then figure out how to actually produce it in a timely fashion. That's like 80% of the battle right there. And once you get to the point where you're doing this for 6 months and you're like, that was great, I hated that, then stop. And if You know, and if you do it for 6 months and you're like, I have 1 million followers on YouTube and this is epic, then you can start thinking about like, but my camera sucks. I need a better camera. Because in a few weeks or a few months of podcasting, you're gonna be like, oh, well, I need something I can do to use close-ups of equipment, or actually, I need a better camera for me, but it would be nice to have, a lava mic so that I didn't have the big headset on my head. But I would say start with the equipment you have, start making it, start meeting a regular deadline, and then figure out what you actually need to make the kind of podcast you want to make. Does that make sense, Jack?
Okay.
And we get this question all the time, and one of the things we have to impress upon people is it's not starting a podcast. It's easy to start a podcast.
Right.
It's difficult to continue a podcast.
Yeah.
Because once you start to lose interest, and you will, and no matter how passionate you are about it, at some point your schedule's going to bog you down. You're going to get tired. You're going to need to recharge. You still need to push it through. And you know this. If you step away from your audience for a month,
I starve, and my children starve.
Your audience is gone. But taking what Patrick has said and continuing with it, he's talking about engagement. The moment you get engagement, you get people who actually like the content. They like your videos. They're coming back, and they start saying things like, hey man, it'd be awesome if we could hear you better. Or, could you do something about your lighting? That's when you can actually start to think about getting some decent equipment. And I'm going to be against the grain here, because there's a lot of people who say, oh, you need to buy this 4K studio camera and $10,000 worth of lights. No, everything starts, even if it's a video podcast, everything starts with audio. If you don't have good audio, it's unbearable.
Right.
Yeah.
And people notice it much more than you'd actually think.
Yeah, because our minds, we can fix bad video. If the frame rate's not right, if the video stutters a little bit, that's fine as long as we can hear it. Now at Twit, this is our gold standard. We've got a Heil PR40. We love this mic. It's a front-firing mic. It uses an XLR connection, which is what you want, because this is sort of the gold standard for making sure that you're going to have good quality audio. Unfortunately, you can't just plug this straight into your computer and be done. You do need some sort of an adapter. I go for this. This is a Shure X2U. This is a XLR to USB converter. What this will allow you to do is to take any XLR microphone and pipe it into your computer, where you can use it with your editing suite, be it YouTube or Facebook Live. This is a little expensive, though. This is about $100. This is going to run you close to $400.
Yeah, well, the other problem is when you have a microphone like this, you basically have to talk into the microphone here.
Yeah.
And you either carry the microphone around with you, or you never move your head away from the microphone, because if you do, all of a sudden,
there we go.
Or it gets really back up like here.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite.
But that's one of the things. Like you may find yourself doing a podcast where it's like you talk at the screen and you don't move, and that mic would be perfect for you. But if you're the kind of guy that's, if you're moving around, if you're walking, if you're doing stuff like that, then you want something that's attached to you that will work even if you are moving or saying around. Although I will say right now you're being really still on that frame, man. There we go.
He's got the training.
There we go.
He's ready for this. He's ready. Jack, let me ask, what are you thinking about podcasting about?
So it would be a tech show covering news about Android, iOS, Windows, Mac, and Linux. Yeah.
Do you know where you want to push it out to? Are you talking about YouTube only? Are you going to do Facebook? I mean, what's the kind of format you envision as you get more mature in podcasting?
Yeah. So I think it would be probably YouTube at first, but I'm not even quite sure about that, like where to put the podcast and how to get the bandwidth and all that.
All right, I got something then. I got a little something. I just got this. This was a while back. I said I was 50-50. I was batting 500 for Kickstarters. And in the last 2 weeks, I got 4 of my Kickstarters, which brought me up to 100%, which was amazing. This is probably the one that I was waiting for the longest. This bad little mamma jamma, if I can find where all the cables are hung up, this is called the Screens. Now, quite simply, imagine the TriCaster that we have here at the Twit studio. This is kind of like the poor man's version of it. This is a $400 device that takes in 4 HDMI inputs plus a virtual input, so 5 switchable inputs. I can tile them on the screen. I can have windows next to windows. I can do interesting transitions back and forth between the inputs, but that's not the cool part. The cool part is this will accept a USB microphone, so you can put your headset straight on it, and it also has a network port and Wi-Fi, so I can stream directly from this box to YouTube. I don't need any editing software. I don't need an encoder. I just take the 4 in, I control it with my tablet or my laptop, and the output goes directly to YouTube Live. I mean, this is probably...
You can embarrass yourself in front of everyone you know in real time.
Yes, you can. In fact, I have it set for the wrong resolution right now, but I'm not sure. Do we have this? So this is... Oh, let's wake up all the devices that are currently off here. I've kind of got it set between... Oh, they went to sleep. I have 4 devices in here. I've got my laptop. I've got this little Leva PC. I've got a testing device, and then I'm not sure exactly what was supposed to be on the 4th device. It was probably the, oh, I know what it is. It was the Raspberry Pi. And the cool thing about this is I can tile them. I can switch back and forth between them. I could have, say, one that's dedicated to the camera on my face. One is dedicated to the HDMI output from my computer. So, for example, if I wanted to do gaming videos. Sure. This will also stream directly to Twitch. I mean, it is this super versatile box. I am just starting to find out how to use this properly, but I'm really excited by what this can do for us.
The man is excited, Jack.
Yeah. So, Jack, what do you think? Are you ready to start small? Start just by getting that audience, and then slowly, as you find out your needs, can you add little bits and pieces of hardware?
Yeah. So I don't think I'd be doing a live show. I think I definitely need to be doing editing, at least at first. So, like, what kind of software do you guys recommend?
I use Premiere. I'm not sure what you use.
I use Premiere too.
Yeah, and you're a student, so you can get an educational discount.
Which is not a bad deal. I would basically, do you want to do it on, do you have a full computer to work with? Do you want to be able to edit it on your phone? I would basically start experimenting with stuff and find one you like that is free. Okay. If you're running Windows, like if you can find an old copy of Movie Maker on there. I'm sorry?
Open source or something.
Yeah, start with whatever's free and doesn't drive you nuts, and then go from there. Kind of like with the hardware.
Oh, of course.
At some point, it probably if you find yourself getting to the point where like I really like editing and editing is cool, and maybe I want to edit instead of making a podcast, or if you get to the point where you can't do the things you want to do, then start figuring out how to get an educational discount on Premiere and go with something like that, because that's kind of the standard for what everybody uses once they get up to a certain level. Until you get to there, you're basically figuring like I have to figure out how to tell a story. There is voice, there is sound from the devices I'm talking about, there are stills I want to show, and blending those together in the right time is how you sort of create the grammar or the sentences of delivering the video. Use whatever's free and you can get fast, and play around with everything until you find something you like, because I don't think there's any particularly stronger one than the other, because as soon as you start spending money, everybody's like Premiere.
Yeah. It was Final Cut for a while, and then they did weird things.
So then, how do I? So, kind of three more questions. But how do I kind of promote the podcast?
That is
nobody knows.
When you figure that one out, you can just do a podcast on that.
See, if you had a name for your podcast and a YouTube site, you could have given us that right now.
Right now, this is how you do it.
But the. It's something that evolves continuously, right? So, okay, you create a good YouTube channel, you do interesting stuff, and you tell your friends about it, and then hopefully more people notice on YouTube. And, you could do Snapchat, you could do Facebook. That question you just asked, I know people that make 3 times what I make every year, that tell people how to help people find their stuff on the internet for a living, and they don't have a real answer either. So part of it's like, figure out where you want to direct people. I'm going to do this on YouTube, and I'm going to do it on Facebook. Okay, so I need a YouTube name and a Facebook name, and I need to, you could spend the rest of your life, or at least until Facebook goes away or gets replaced by something else, basically just reading what everybody's written about how to promote things on Facebook. But mostly it's learning like, okay, I look at Google Trends, it tells me what people search for when they're talking about this particular part of Android, so I need to use this word rather than that word. It sounds really simple, or it sounds really silly maybe, but things like, I remember when I learned that everybody searches for laptop, nobody searches for notebooks. So stop putting notebook in the headline of a laptop review. And that's just, search engine optimization, learning how people track things, figure out how your friends search for things, and then start, you start figuring out how to throw bait out and find it. Mostly though, it comes down to doing something super awesome that gets people's attention so they tell other people about it.
And one thing I can give you is something that always works, or almost always works, is collaboration. The internet is a collaborative place. If you can work with other content producers, other geeks, other tech people, that is always a good way to sort of share your audience. It's not I'm stealing his audience or she's stealing my audience. It's, look, we're introducing our audience to one another. That sort of creative construction is something I think really drives the internet content industry.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. We'll see. Jack, thank you very much for joining us. Now, I know you don't have a YouTube channel yet or a URL yet, but when you do get one and you do start producing, do you think maybe you could reach back out to the new screensavers? Because, you know, I want to see what you're doing.
Cool.
All right.
Again, that's thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Jack.
It's Jack from Flagstaff, Arizona. Thank you for reaching out. And folks, again, remember, next week we've got Jason Howell and Scott Wilkinson. If you've got a question for them, this is how you contact them.
Need tech help? The new screensavers are here with answers. Email your tech questions to newscreensavers@twit.tv.
It's time to geek out about some headphones, and we've got an audio specialist, Patrick Norton. We thought we should take advantage of your experience, of your expertise. You've brought some ear candy for us.
I've been out of control on headphones for the last year. My whole headphone lifestyle was pretty stable for several years, and then I got a new headphone amplifier, and then I started playing around with some new headphones, and then things got out of control. So it's been interesting, especially with Spotify doing their high definition version and Tidal coming out doing lossless versions. A lot of people, if the only thing you've ever listened with is a set of ear pods, your headphone experience sucks. Your inner monitor experience sucks, and you can do a lot better, and there's a lot more music for you to actually hear. But let me start talking about a couple things. First of all, if you are still running with the sort of, I got these MP3s somewhere and I think they're CD quality, do me a favor, go to Spotify, you know, go to Tidal, pay the money for the premium version so you get like the 300K streaming version on Spotify or the full lossless version on Tidal, because first of all, you'll actually get all of the song for the first time. Because it is amazing the difference, and it's amazing how much music you actually lose when it's compressed. If you have a whole bunch of CDs still, that's fine too. You actually want to make either some, like, you know, 256K or 300K MP3s, or, you know, in my case, I actually prefer FLAC, lossless audio files, so I have all of the musical information from the original CD. Cue audio nerds emailing me about how could you not recommend albums? Vinyl is where life is. I don't want to get into that right now. Vinyl's dead to me, and it's been dead to me since I was 12 years old. I got to be honest. The most amazing deal that I've seen on headphones at this point, these are the monoprice 8323s. These are $16. These are over the ear.
So for $16, I'm not expecting super broadband, high fidelity audio.
You're not going to buy something better until you spend about $50 or $75.
Okay, so this is a nice price break.
It's a nice price break, and it's actually, they have a removable cable, so if you're the kind of person that tears apart cables, you can pop in a new cable, and they sound shockingly good. They are not going to sound, probably to most people, as good as my next step up, which is the Sony MDR 7506. And these are kind of like a standard studio headphone. There's probably a pair of these behind the desk here. They're incredibly common in recording studios. They are fundamentally indestructible, and they have fantastic audio from the low end to the high end. And these are kind of a traditional, you can kind of see it inside of there. There's a Mylar speaker inside of there, and that's not bad. It's pretty good. And for $75, you're not going to get much better audio until you spend about $300. And that's where things get really interesting, because in the last couple of years, there's been a resurgence of what they call planar magnetic or ortho diagonal, or what's it, ortho.
It's got a lot of syllables, so it must be good.
It must be good. Hi-Fi Man's kind of led the charge in this. Odyssey's another one, Fostex. And instead of having a speaker inside of there, you've got two sets of magnets with holes in them. You can just kind of see the magnets there. And then behind that is an incredibly thin piece of plastic material. And if you can see those lines on there, that's actually conductive material. So instead of having a speaker that goes back and forth, what happens is there's magnets on either side, and they run the audio signal through those marks on the surface, the conductors on the surface of the plastic, and it creates this big wall of sound that moves towards you.
So it's not a driver inside of a headphone cup. The headphone cup is the driver.
The driver, essentially. And this is, in the last couple of years, especially Hi-Fi Man has made huge inroads. The Fostex T50 RP Mark IIIs are another huge one. The previous version of the Mark IIs were legendary in sort of audio geek communities because people would mod them to get better sound. So what we're looking at here, you know, this is like $300.
And you know, these are incredibly comfortable. I put these on a little bit before.
They're a little heavy for most people. I should point out, these are the 400s, the new 400S, which is kind of the equivalent to that's out today, or the 400i. They started around $300. You know, they look a little bit different than this, but the basic idea is the same. The 400S doesn't have quite as good a low-end audio on that. They're a little heavy for most people, but
I
pretty
like the
comfortable.
fact that the cups actually go around my ears and not onto my ears, because I know that's fatigue for me. That
Do me a
just
favor,
hurts.
turn to the side really quickly. This is an example of an open-backed headphone, right? And there's kind of two different versions of headphones out there. There's open back and there's closed back. And a closed back is obviously sealed, and that's going to block noise from the outside. An open headphone is obviously not only going to let noise from the outside in, but it's going to let your music out so everybody in the office knows you're listening to Britney Spears, which may or may not be emotionally embarrassing. And that's kind of important because while there are a lot of sealed headphones that can sound big and airy and spacious, the general rule of thumb is that you need an open headphone or some kind of semi-open back headphone to get the best audio experience. So a couple more headphones to look at. If you have the money, we talked about, we should talk about Sennheiser's Momentum. These sell for about $200 new now.
Yes.
This is an amazing headphone. These started out at about $350. They now offer us Momentum 2 is another headphone out from this series that I think is very similar. The Momentum 2 has a slightly bigger ear cup. This is a fantastic sounding headphone for $200. If you want a more luxurious headphone, these are the pardon me, B&W P7. These sell for $350. This is one of the best headphones you can buy for the money, and it's like strapping a BMW to your head. So if you don't think these are particularly stylish, you might like these a little bit better.
Did you just say BMW?
To your head.
So no,
look at this.
They're called BMWs?
No, they're Bowers and Wilkins.
Okay. I was like,
British speaker
when did they start
manufacturer,
making
very
headphones?
legendary.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, I like.
But those are all example of sealed headphones. You know, as you start spending more, they get more luxurious. You get more stuff in the box. Two last ones to talk about. We talked about the Hi-Fi Man, the current version of these that are about $300, the HE400. Two of the most fascinating headphones I've seen this year. These are Odyssey Signs, and these are kind of really interesting because
you're cradling them there.
Well, because they're about $600.
Okay, yeah.
If I drop them, I'm going to have to pay for them. Again, they have the sort of luxurious, I've strapped a BMW to my head. But these are interesting because they're planar magnetics, but they're sealed, which is a little more unusual. So you can get the planar magnetic experience. These sound pretty amazing. They're a little uncomfortable for me because these sit more on my ears than around them because my ears are huge. But my personal favorite headphones right now, these are a painful $600, which is nothing. By the way, a lot of people think the best headphones in the world right now, they came out from Focal, they're the Utopia, they're $4,000. I can pretty much stop speaking there because you're probably not going to buy them. But these are pretty amazing. A lot of people think these sound like headphones that should cost a lot more money. These are AudioQuest Nighthawks, and these are what I'm doing most of my listening with right now. These are dynamic. They have a speaker inside of them. And they're interesting because they made some design decisions when they engineered them where it's not quite, you know, one of the things that people are like, oh, the planar magnetics have the most brilliant and sparkling highs. And while brilliant and sparkling may be what audiophiles want, it may not be actually be how audio sounds like in the real world. And these sound very natural. Now, some audiophiles be like, well, they sound muddy. I think they sound amazing, and they have one of the most, you know, it's one of those things where I put these on and my head starts shaking, and 4 hours later I realized I was supposed to take out the garbage, do the dishes, walk the dog, and actually write a segment. And then I put these down and go do all the things I was supposed to do. So these are AudioQuest Nighthawks. They sell for about $600.
You know, people ask me a lot about this because we've done podcasting episodes on know-how, and they say, well, what do you listen to? And they're expecting me to tell them what to buy. And I say, look, okay, I can tell you what I use. My favorites right now are the Audio-Technica M50s and the Audio-Technica M7Rs. Those things are beautiful. They're not that pricey. And then if I want something that can also be used for gaming, I use something like the Kingston HyperX. They've got the Cloud and the Cloud Revolver 2. Very comfortable, very nice sounding, but that's me. I mean, do you get that sometimes when people are saying, well, how can I hear like you hear?
That's the best thing about headphones right now is there are more awesome headphones for less money than there have ever been before, right? And it's really, really great. But if I took two people and I put these Hi-Fi Man HE400s on them, the AudioQuest Nighthawks, there would probably be two very, very different reactions. You know, my wife actually prefers these because, you know, she finds them less fatiguing. It's not as bright. It's not as in her face. A lot of people listen to these and they're like, I can hear I think someone in the third row of the orchestra just adjusted their hairband. This is amazing, right? And at some level, it gets a little ridiculous when especially if you start hanging out with audio enthusiasts and they talk about what they're searching for. But the reality is you kind of go like, okay, it's an AM radio. I think that's Bob Marley. You know, it's an FM radio. It's Bob Marley and stuff's happening. There's background singers. And, oh wow, I really like that bass line. I have a decent set of headphones. That's a kicking bass line, and I never realized there's a second guitar going in that track. And you get into sort of the audiophile stuff, and you're like, you can kind kind of feel the entire room they're recording in. You can hear all of the voices, you can hear all of the information, you can hear all of the music that's actually recorded. And that's kind of the goal. And that's why people are like, I'm going to spend my children's college money on more audio gear.
And we love tech and we love specs, and I love the fact that this is continuing to develop at the pace where we can now get a very decent set for next to no money at all.
Yeah, 16 bucks.
And ultimately, though, it's going to come down to, well, what works for you? What's comfortable for you? What sounds good to you?
If you can, get to a place that has a bunch of headphones. For example, the big blue and yellow label.
Best Buy.
Yeah. Best Buy, especially if they have one of the Magnolia Centers inside of them. They have a ton of headphones you can listen to. You know, I will say the mono prices, you're not going to get much better than this for the money. And if you have teenagers that destroy things, or you are a teenager that destroys things, mono price 8323s are great to go. Their earbuds suck. Sony MDR 7506s are impossible to. You can try to kill them, but it takes effort.
No, we've had versions of that have been around for 20 years.
Yeah, and are still going strong, probably on their second, third set of ear pads. The Audio Technicas you have, those are a fantastic deal.
M50s, 7Rs.
Don't need to spend thousands. You may find you want to, but for under $100, you can get some amazing stuff.
I will say, have you ever tried the Tech Library, where you can check stuff out for a while and then try it? And it's a great way to try headphones. You've never tried the Tech Library?
There's so many things in life
I think it's called Amazon Prime. Just get all the headphones you want, try them on, and then send them back. It's free, it's Prime, it's part of your subscription.
I'll tell you a story about the Tech Library and my wife someday. We don't do the Tech Library no more at my house.
Well, we hope you've enjoyed Patrick telling you all you need to know about high-end audio, but we're going to be heading over to the other corner in just a bit. But first, we got a little short here. Ooh. Yeah, Frederick Van Johnson, he's going to tell us about some of his favorite tools.
Hey guys, I'm Frederick Van Johnson from thisweekinphoto.com. I wanted to show you something that is always with me, and that's my camera strap. You know, finding the right camera strap is a lifelong adventure for a photographer, kind of like finding the right camera bag. But camera straps are really personal and really important. The one that I have on my camera is this one. It is the Slide Light from a company called Peak Design, who also makes my camera bag. And the cool thing about this one is it uses this Peak Design connector technology where you can pop it off of your camera and pop it right back on just like that. Because of that technology, I have these little connectors right here on all of my cameras. I have 3 or 4 cameras and all of them have these little connectors on them. And it also means I only need one camera strap. So this one camera strap is always with me. Clamp it on there and go, and I'm good to go. The Slide Light is it's a variation on their first camera strap, which was much wider. This one is thinner because it's made specifically for people that shoot with smaller cameras, like these mirrorless cameras that are so popular these days. So check it out. It's the Slide Light from a company called Peak Design. My name is Frederick Van Johnson. You can check me out at thisweekinphoto.com.
Patrick, it's time for the mailbag. Yeah, this is the time when we normally get Leo coming in with his wonderful little mailbox. But I don't think we're going to get that. We don't get that special attention. Oh, we do. Wait.
The saw blades are freaking me out.
I was going to automate this thing, but I'm kind of scared what they might do with it.
I'm afraid.
Oh, hey, look. They've given us a gift for our guest. You get the brand new ceramic iWatch, too.
How exciting.
Or Apple Watch, too.
I wonder if it'll actually fit on my wrist.
It should. It's supposed to. There we go. It stretches.
I wonder if this is going to trigger the bomb.
Yes. Well, that's what we can only hope. Along with that Apple Watch, we get a couple of letters from fans who need our help. Are you ready to stop messing with your Apple Watch and figure this out?
You handed me a toy. What did you think was going to happen?
You take one. I take one. Why don't you kick it off?
Thomas writes in, I run a Boy Scout camp that is remote, so we have satellite internet with limited data. We have a Wi-Fi router and limit with password access to just a few people, but someone always gives it to someone else, and boom, we go over our quota and have to pay a premium. When I served in the military in Iraq, most bases had a system where you could purchase a card that would give you so much internet usage. I have not been able to find something similar online. Thank you, Thomas.
This is actually a very old problem. This happens a lot, especially when you start getting out into the, I won't call them the boondocks, but definitely out into more
places where
areas.
Internet gets more expensive and more difficult to access.
Especially when it's satellite delivered, because you are literally counting the bits. Well, thankfully, there are a lot of products out there that can help you with this, because you're looking for a device that can serve a Boy Scout camp, something that maybe you can limit on per device usage.
Right.
Something that you could say, hey, look, when you log in as a guest, you get
60 minutes.
Something like that, right, exactly. This much time or this much data.
Even better.
That you get to transfer, because you don't want someone doing those 60 minutes on Netflix. You want them doing 60 minutes checking email.
Right.
There is a device that I've been playing with that's off the shelf that actually does this really, really well.
A router?
A router. Go figure. It's the Synology RT1900 AC. It's the only device they have. So if you put Synology router, you're going to find it. They designed this to very much mirror the operating system they have for their network attached storage devices. This thing is absolutely fantastic. But what I love about it is inside of the interface, there's a place where you can set traffic quotas, and you can set per device when they can and cannot access the internet. So like right there, that screen shows you when you are able to access the internet and when you're not. So you could say, look, you get from noon to 1. And not only that, you can also set per device bandwidth caps. You can say you can only transfer at 256K.
Right.
And once you hit 2 megabytes, you're done for the day. So that's all there. Now, I will say it's not completely easy because you kind of have to enroll every device.
And that's where it gets, if you're rolling over a new group of campers every week or a new group of leaders every week, and you have to change the, you basically have to go in, in a lot of routers, it might be done by MAC address, and that can be, or you could assign a static static IP address to their device, but it will require some work on your part, and it'll probably be an incredible pain no matter which router you use.
Right. The other thing about that, though, is it's also very good at monitoring complete traffic stats. So you know if you're getting close to that point at which you're going to be dinged. It also has dual interface. So you've got WAN, which you could say hook up to the satellite internet, and then you can use another connection to say hook up to a network-connected modem, where it'll be incredibly slow, but it will at least allow you to say, okay, once I've started getting close to my internet cap on the satellite, start going through the super slow but cheap connection.
If you have that option.
If you have that option.
But definitely look into, take a look at the router you have access to now and see whether or not you can actually throttle or limit access time based on the IP address or the MAC address of the device.
The other way to do this, and this gets a bit more geeky, it's a bit more complicated, both DDWRT and OpenWRT have modules that allow you to turn compatible routers into what are called captive portals. A captive portal will need you to make some sort of authentication server, and so you'll have to create accounts for everyone who wants access to the internet. But you've seen these before, like at airports or coffee shops. It's when you log in the first time, it says, give me your login credentials, and then it allows them to do whatever it is that you set up to do. I bring this up second because it is a fantastic solution. I've used this plenty of times, but it is far more complicated than buying something and having it out of the box be able to do traffic throttling.
And either way, it's going to probably involve a lot of work on your part, but you can shut down people's access to the router if they're not supposed to have it, or at least get it to the point where the person can be like, well, I only used a few minutes. Well, look at the computer.
I've got your stats.
Yeah, you actually were accessing Netflix for 2 hours.
Something else I actually really like about that 1900 AC, though, is there is an app that the administrator can run. So at any given time, as long as you're within range of the Wi-Fi hotspot on top of the AP, it will tell you exactly what's going on. And you can say, hey, warn me if suddenly one user starts taking over 50% of the bandwidth.
Right.
And I think that's really what you're looking for. You're not necessarily looking for a foolproof technical way to keep people from over-downloading.
I am.
Well, yeah, because you are.
Well, when you get the alarm, if you don't know who it is, you got to track them down.
Yeah. But the app, because it shows up on the app, like who's doing all the downloading, you just click that account and it's now suspended. Everyone else goes on, but that account stops.
And then they have to find you. He's on it.
Ta-da! All right, I've got another one. Hopefully this will be right up your alley. This comes from Dave. He says, I have 40 plus years of IT experience from integrating discrete chip components and single board computers to globally distributed systems and much more. However, I have no certifications at all. I'm getting ready to retire and would like to work in IT for my next 15-year career. How do I determine where I'm at in terms of certifiable knowledge? What are the certs in IT that are available today? Especially, how are they changing and how do they relate to each other in terms of equivalency and interdependencies? What will be the best certs to have for employment and income in 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years? Dave.
Oh my goodness. So I keep running into two schools of thoughts on certification. One of them is that I don't care if somebody's certified, can they do the job? And that of course means you have to get to that person to get them to convince to them that you can do the job, or they have to know you from somewhere else and hire you on board. The other approach is I'm going to get this certification and this certification and this certification and this certification and this certification, and then hopefully those will lead to gainful employment. And all of those certifications, which may be fantastic or may be useless in getting a job in the real world, are going to be problematic because the entire tech industry prefers to hire 23-year-olds that don't have any active relationships and don't mind living with 7 people because they're in a part of the country where housing is too expensive and they're not getting paid anything. Number one, ageism, I think, would probably be the way to call it. And 2, most of the really interesting things that are actually growth opportunities on the next 15 years, there isn't a lot of agreement over the value of certificates. Because if I look at one thing, if I was like, man, time for a career change, for me, the thing I keep coming back to where the most opportunities is security.
Yep.
Pen testing, security, maintaining systems, anything that involves keeping people out of servers and databases and places they aren't supposed to be, and anything that involves learning how to crack into systems to figure out how to get to places you aren't supposed to be. We were talking about at the top of the show, speaking of callbacks, we were talking about autonomous vehicles, and one of the demos at DEF CON this year was, around DEF CON this year was like, hey, I can remotely activate the brakes on a car.
Yeah, that's the Charlie Miller and Chris Ballecer, their demo from last year blew everybody away, and this year it was sort of just an extension of what they did.
Yeah, and I can laugh because that's kind of funny. They stop the brakes on a car, but then you think of the ability, like all it takes is some poor security or some poor pen testing. For example, almost all of the Internet of Things in the world and almost all of the routers in the world have almost worthless security. So I look at those as being, to me, the number one opportunity if I'm looking for sort of my next career path is to look at security. And a lot of the people that work in security, they come out of backgrounds where they were hackers and pen testers, and they experimented and kind of learned on the job, which is not quite the clear-cut path you're looking for by any stretch of the imagination.
I'm with you. I mean, I understand why people want certs because it gives you something tangible to put in your toolbox and bring out. As a person who has both worked a lot in IT and has hired for IT, I find certs almost useless. I mean, I always tell people, go for a cert if you think you're actually going to learn something. Don't go for a cert just because you think it's going to help you get the next job. And like you, I think if this is going to be your second career or your third career, you don't want to be in IT doing desktop fixing. That's not for you. Save that for the 23-year-olds. You want to do something that's a bit higher end, something that's a bit more built on experience and maturity and patience. I think you're absolutely right. That's going to be in security. Now, there's a sponsor of the Twit TV network that I actually do use them. It's called IT Pro TV. They've got a very good subscription plan. It's a great way for you to try virtual labs so you can actually practice on some of this hardware that you wouldn't otherwise buy. They've got courses for security professionals. I wouldn't say that this is going to get you a job, but this will at least, because this was part of your question, this will at least tell you where you are on the spectrum. Do you understand what they're talking about? Can you go into the advanced lessons and not be lost? Because if that's the case, that gives you a pretty good indication of where you are.
Yeah, I mean, the IT Pro TV, they offer the test examinations. You can basically go and take the test examinations, and if you kick its ass, you're good to go. If it kicks your ass, you have places to learn.
Back up a little bit.
And ITPro.tv is an opportunity for that. It's also amazing how many opportunities there are for learning. For example, the crew over at Hack 5, they do pen test with Hack 5 now, which is like 3 days of one-on-one training with the people that create the tools there. Think about what you've done for the last 10 years and where the pain points were, and then look for opportunities to solve them. And I'd probably look for the places you've spent most of the last decade and think like, what is your security nightmare, and what opportunities or career opportunities are there for you to try to fix that before it becomes somebody else's nightmare to fix.
Right. And actually, a show that I used to do with your current co-host, we co-hosted a show called Coding 101. At one point, we had some of those security professionals on, and this very question was asked: how do I get started? It seems so daunting. And they pointed out, look, in this day and age, it's all about what you can do. Start submitting some of your code to GitHub. Start going to the conferences, rub shoulders, get to know who's out there, ask them what kind of research they're working on. And most of them are very happy to explain it, like a Black Hat or a DEF CON or ShmooCon, DerbyCon, wherever it might be, about what is up and coming, where is their research happening. If you start being excited by that, that could be your next career.
There you have it.
There you have it.
Good luck.
Good luck indeed. Patrick,
Yo.
you know, it is always a pleasure to have any chance to work with you. I worked with you on one of the very early episodes of the new Screensavers. You came on for a know-how once, and I gotta say, it's still a little pitter-pat of the heart because you were one of the very first Tech TV people that I ever met in person, and it's still a joy.
Sir, it is a pleasure as always.
Yeah. You got to tell them about what you're doing because you've got some exciting stuff going on the other side of the day.
Well, Shannon and I still host Tech Thing, TEKTHING.com. Yeah, I think I can spell the name at this point. YouTube.com/techthing, techthing.com. Yeah, we were looking at the Dell UltraSharp monitor this week. I actually tore down an Apple cable and then found out the Apple Lightning, the headphone adapter, and then found out somebody else had done it. Because it went viral while we were actually doing our teardown. But it was amazing to see the DAC inside of there. I was shocked at how much they actually stuffed inside that tiny cable.
There's a lot inside that little enclosure.
Well, the fun part was actually realizing how I was going to have to remove 2 layers of welded steel to get to the inside of the cable. And I was like, you know, that was one of the better built Apple cables I've ever seen.
Yes, as Creamy Corn Cob has said, the DAC is stacked.
The DAC is stacked.
Indeed.
And I also do AVXL with Robert Heron, which is audio, home theater, and content podcast that we do on a weekly basis. And we get into headphones quite a bit on that, but mostly HD and stuff like that.
Well, I know that you're a busy man, so again, I thank you for coming over all this way. It is quite a trip for you. But I'm very glad you made it.
Hey, well, you know what? The sun is shining, and we're inside in the AC, which is much better than being outside, because when I go home, I got to start shoveling dirt. So this is a good place for me to be. I'm happy to help out a little bit longer.
If you go down about 5 miles, you can actually smell the stockyards. So, you know, if you want to stimulate the dirt shoveling, that's pretty much what it would be like.
It smells entirely too much like high school to me.
Teen spirit. Folks, don't forget that we do this show every Saturday after the Tech Guy. Starts around 3 o'clock. You know what? We're very loose with the schedule here. It's a suggestion for the time.
The schedule here is like Swiss trains.
I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I'm teasing you.
I know, of course. And don't forget that we also have a newsletter. Just go to twit.tv/newsletter. You'll get all the news, the announcements, the inside scoop of where we're going. In fact, next week, Brian Burnett and I are going to be heading over to Maker Faire in New York. Nice. You know, I actually... There was a time where I thought Maker Faire New York was probably just the same as Maker Faire. No, in San Mateo, not even close. That thing is incredible. Better. Are you going to be there?
No.
Oh,
I just go to New York.
Yeah. And then after that, I'm going to go to Rome because there's a huge technology conference in Rome.
Oh, I like that.
No tech, but I will be going there.
Are you coming back?
I don't know. I hope so.
That's ominous, man.
Next week, we are going to have Scott Wilkinson and Jason Howell. And then Scott. And the week after that, we have someone else. I'm not sure. But then after that, Leo will be back.
Cool.
Jason Snell. We have Jason Snell doing a new Screensavers because, you know, we like new blood.
New blood. Keeping it fresh.
Until then, I am Father Robert Ballecer.
I'm Patrick Norton.
And I'd like to say thank you for joining us for the new Screensavers.